Welcome to the Four Fires Podcast, where we talk about winning in all four of the essential areas of life.
All right, well, welcome to the Four Fires Podcast. My name is Alan Kemper, and I am here today with Josh Sells, and we are going to dig into some stories about life experiences and about lessons learned, maybe primarily in the physical fire, and then how do they apply in our other spaces. So, Josh, welcome back. It's good to have you on the podcast again. Every now and then in life, we get a wild hair, we get a bee in our bonnet, and maybe we just decide to throw our hat over the fence and go do something that's a little outrageous. And you did this recently in your physical fire. You do a lot of work in your physical fire anyway, but I feel like this is kind of one of those over-the-top moments. So unpack that for us and kind of tell us, what you did and why did you decide that this was a good idea?
Well, I'd love to give you a great story and tell you just how motivated I was and all these things, but this was one of those moments where I just have friends that like to do dumb things. Mm-hmm. And I have one friend in particular who's constantly trying to get me to do dumb things with him. So my buddy Brent, he owns our CrossFit gym, and about once a week he sends me another dumb thing that we could do together. And so in November of last year, he sent me a message and said, there's this marathon ruck where you go to Boston and you ruck a marathon and you get a Boston Marathon medal, like finisher medal, and it's going to be great. We should go do it. And he is very accustomed to me saying no. I'm like, no, that's a dumb idea. Yeah. And this time I actually said yes, which he said, I was actually kind of surprised that you said yes. Yeah. And so we said, okay, we're gonna go do it. And this would not be my first or his first marathon ruck. We've both done those before. But it's my first one in a long time. So, and I haven't really been training rucking. Mm-hmm. I train at CrossFit all the time, but I hadn't rucked in a while. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I got to train for this. I got to get ready, all these things. And then life happened, and we had a lot of personal things happen. Had some situations with family, death in the family, a lot of things happened. And I ended up not really training for my marathon at all. So it was a lot of hesitation, a lot of anxiety flying to Boston, knowing that I'm probably not going to do very well in this. So that was the experience.
Yeah. So for those who aren't really familiar with rucking,
yes,
unpack what is the difference between rucking and walking and running.
All right, so about 10 years ago, something popped up on a news feed somewhere or something. There was this company that was starting, and they were pushing rucking, and it was and I started looking at it. They're like, hey, the algorithms were just getting started. It's like, do you hate running? And I'm like, yes, I hate running. And they were like, you should ruck. And it was these military guys, and they were like, in the military, you put weight on your back and a book bag and just walk.
Just go.
Yeah. And they were like, so if you hate running, this is your answer, because it gives you very similar aerobic benefits without all the knees and all that stuff. And so I'm like, okay. So I pull out a backpack that I had, put some books in it, and go out and just start walking, and start doing this. And I start looking up, and I find out that they have these, events where these former Special Forces guys, you basically pay them to torture you for hours at a time. Yeah. And I started signing up for them. I did a couple of those, and then I found out that there was a guy that goes to our church that actually had been doing the same events. And so then he and, like I said, I have friends that like to do dumb things. And so then he starts encouraging me to do more of these things. And so that's kind of how I got into it. Yeah. And
so it's walking with weight on your back.
That's it. It. It's just walking with weight on your back.
Yeah. And there's some advantages to doing that over just regular walking, better calorie burn, higher heart rate.
Yeah.
more muscle tone, and then you can do variations of like rucks with, kind of a farmer's single, a carry along with the ruck to kind of like strengthen core. But it's been a neat. It's a tool that we use in the Four Fires just because it's almost anybody at any fitness level can do it.
Absolutely.
It's you can start small. You can add, a little bit of weight. You can move up to 20% of your body weight.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
a lot of different ways to do it. So,
yeah, and I also would say, the great thing about it is if you can find people to do it with. I've often said that like hiking and rucking, you get to know somebody very well because the small talk stops pretty quickly. Like you run out of things to surface level. Yeah. And so some of my deeper conversations have happened on rucks where if you're doing a 12-mile ruck with somebody, you have some pretty deep conversations.
For sure. So. Yeah. So, I call it a walk and talk sometimes. You were just going to get out there and it's interesting in our society. I've noticed that like when we do an executive coaching engagement, we book them for 2 hours. And a lot of people are, why a 2-hour engagement? Because rarely do you ever have 2 hours of uninterrupted time with one person to just unpack what's going on. Yeah, and this answers that question. Right. It's just you and some other person and you got nothing else to do but dig in. So so I like that touches on some of the people fire. You get friends or you bring somebody with you. One of the great lines, I forget where this one came from. This might be a Covey line, but you will become like the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Yep. So if you got crazy friends who like to do dumb things, you'll become somebody who does dumb things.
Dumb things, that's right.
So your friends encouraged you. You decided, hey, let's go do this 26-mile hike with weight on my back. Yes. And so how many folks went with you?
It was just me and Brent, and then 1,000 people that we didn't know.
That's right. So it's you and one other guy, and you felt like, I mean, you say, we say, like you stay trained, so you stay ready, so you don't have to get ready. Right. So you already have a pretty good cardiovascular overall, pretty good muscle mass build, but this is a different kind of.
This
event.
Is different, You've got to get your feet toughened up, like and that was my concern because I know what miles can do to your ankles, to your joints, to your feet. It's not, you go out for a 4-mile ruck, it's not going to put a ton of stress on your joints. It's actually easier than a 4-mile run on your joints and those kind of things. But when you start dealing with
the above,
you start hitting above 12 miles. That's it can take a toll on you.
Yeah. So what was your experience? You went in with a little bit of trepidation and
so I mean, the first 4 miles went by real quick, and the excitement. There was a lot of pageantry. They were firing off cannons. It was during Patriots Day, so there's a lot of excitement. They're doing all this, pomp and circumstance, and you're excited, and you're like, oh, this is going great. After about mile 8, it was not going great anymore, and mile 9, I had definitely what I like to call one of those meet yourself moments. And, the pain, the conversation was starting to slow down because the pain was starting to become real. And I remember my left ankle was just like throbbing. And I had some other little aches and pains, but it was throbbing. And my buddy Brent, he's there with me. He has done some ultra marathons. He's done a couple of these marathon rucks. He rucks a lot. He does a lot of other things. And I looked at him and I said, man, if this keeps going, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And it was in that moment that he said something to me that has just stuck with me. And he said, one time when he was doing an ultra marathon, he was having one of those meet yourself moments. And he came across a girl that does them all the time. And she looked at him and she said, Brent, I need to tell you something. You got to remember, pain is not linear. And I was like, okay, what does that even mean? Like, tell me that. Like, help me understand that. He goes, just because something hurts in this mile doesn't mean it's going to hurt in the next mile. He said, the discomfort that you feel, the problem is so often we start thinking what hurts now is just going to keep hurting. It's going to get worse. And the truth is the next 4 or 5 miles, my ankle kind of stayed the same for those 4 or 5 miles. And then at mile 16, it stopped hurting. And it was like, oh, okay. Now other things were hurting, but that became kind of my mantra in that. Miles 9 through 13 were probably the hardest of them all. Once I got to 16, some of my best times came from 16 to 20. I was able to kind of just mentally zone out and just focus on taking one step at a time. And you just kind of I don't even really remember those miles very much. And it was just kind of crazy. And then you get to mile 20 and then you're just like, I don't care what happens at this point. I'm finishing at this point. I don't care what hurts. The last 3 miles, everything hurt. But you're just like, whatever. No one's going to make me stop at this point. So.
Well, such a good frame of mind. Pain is not linear. Because I think, how often do we find ourselves in a situation where, in mile 4, it's a 6 out of 10 pain. And if I get to mile 8, it's going to be a 12 out of 10
Absolutely.
pain, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, this is just going to keep going and going. And that's not how pain works.
No, absolutely not.
And framing it that way is really helpful.
And I mean, obviously, if you have an injury, that's one thing. Obviously, if you have an injury, the old adage that football coaches, are you hurt or you're injured? Right? Are you hurt or are you injured? Because there's a difference. If you're injured, we need to go treat you. If you're hurt, you can work through that. And there was a lot of wisdom to that. I mean, there's a lot of wisdom to what the coaches were teaching you. And I've talked to my son. He started. My younger son, Benjamin, he started kind of doing some workouts and things with a trainer for baseball. And he told me the other day that he was struggling through part of the workout. And he said, well, then it got better. It didn't hurt as much. And I said, just remember, your mind will quit long before your body will. Your body will adapt. And I think that's really, there's probably some science behind this, that your body knows how to adapt. It knows how to do things to help you get through things. It knows how to stop firing pain signals when it doesn't need them anymore, discomfort. But the real battle is in our mind, is because we're thinking about. The reason I was thinking about quitting at mile 9 is because there were 17 miles left. It wasn't because it hurt, because I could live with the pain. It was because there was 17 miles left and I was already hurting, and I'm like, I don't know that I can do this. So
the mental game of pain and discomfort, if you can master that,
absolutely,
you will go very far in life.
That's right.
There's a book out called The Comfort Crisis, and and part of what it talks about is that we live in a culture where the ultimate goal is the pursuit of comfort, and it's not hard to find.
No, it's easy.
You can find it in alcohol, you can find it in sex, you can find it all over the place. Dopamine hits on your phone,
absolutely,
sitting on the couch, and part of the outcome of all of that is when people become when we seek and find comfort, we actually become less happy.
That's correct.
Our overall happiness in life.
I was having a conversation with Owen the other day about this, my oldest son, and I told him, I said, you don't like the idea of going and doing stuff, but you don't like not doing stuff. And I said, have you ever met a happy, fulfilled, lazy person? And he was like, no. I was like, but you've met plenty of happy and fulfilled people who work hard. And the accomplishment is actually that purpose is actually what we're looking for, but the idea of what we have to go through to fulfill it, the idea of it. There's a Stoic philosopher who says we suffer much more in our mind than we actually do in life. Mm-hmm. And there's so much truth to that.
So here's a psychologist would say that happiness is connected to progress, right? So people are happy when they're making progress, or a synonym for progress is when they're growing.
Yes.
Here's another great quote. Growth and comfort rarely coexist.
Yeah.
So discomfort is a prerequisite for, think about go to the gym, think about in school, think about anywhere in your life when you have grown. It's because you've been uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
You pressed yourself into a place that was not comfortable for you. So if growth and comfort, if discomfort is a requisite for growth, and growth is the prerequisite for happiness,
right,
then happiness requires discomfort.
Absolutely.
And so, and I think part of getting to that happiness in life is this recognition of being able to push through the pain.
Absolutely.
Pain is not linear.
Right.
So that is a cool thing to get in your head that clearly helped you in the moment.
Absolutely.
Frame this. You completed the ruck. You brought that story back. Unpack, it's great. It's great in physical fire.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
a great. Where does that truth that pain is not linear, where does that show up or apply in our other fires?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's the coolest part. The physical thing, because it's so real and it's so tangible, is sometimes the easiest place to learn lessons.
Yep, 100%.
And I think it's very transferable. I think that's why it's great, like sports, physical training, all of that stuff. If you can learn a lesson from it and take it to other spots, it's great. And so this mantra has become really something that applies in like every part of my life, whether it's in relationships, with like currently like relationships with my family. Like we're going through a hard time. Like I'm raising 2 teenagers right now.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
Yeah.
And there is some uncomfortable conversations that have happened in our house in the last 6 months. And, the thing is, like you say, this is uncomfortable. This is hard. I can't believe I'm having this conversation. I don't want to continue to have this conversation. It would be easier to just not
forget about it.
Yeah. Like push that out of the way, walk out of the room. Don't press that subject. And that reminder that pain is not linear is that, hey, just because it's uncomfortable now, it's amazing when we press into that discomfort and push through the initial awkwardness of a conversation, what opens up on the other side of it on the relationship. And I think that applies in, with kids, in my marriage, like, the tension, there, with relationships, I always feel like whether it's leadership in business, family, when you find friction, you should lean into it and say, okay, why is there friction there? Let's go there.
Yeah.
We talk about that with our leadership team is like when there's conflict, that's where we need to go. Don't shy away from that because that's what's going to sink our ship if we let it.
If we don't address it.
If we don't address it, correct. But the initial discomfort of it, oftentimes we're like, "Ooh, I don't want to go there."
Yep.
That's going to be a bad one. So I think in relationships, that's kind of where that is. Whether we're talking about finances, we're talking about anything, finances. Had this conversation with people that are in my business. And young people, and they're trying to get their finances right, and it's really hard right now. I'm trying to pay off student loan debts, and I'm like, yes, I understand. But right now you have, like, I tell them, I'm like, right now it's not really an income problem that you have. It's an outgo problem that you have.
It's a discipline problem. Yeah.
And so when you switch that, it's going to hurt really bad. But as there's an old saying, it's like, choose your hard. It's like, Choose your heart.
You pay now or pay later.
Yeah, you're going to pay now or you're going to pay later. And so you can apply that in physical. You can apply that in anything of you choose your heart. If you don't take care of your body right now, you're going to pay for it in 20 years.
Yep.
Same thing with finances is, I tell my son all the time, is like, he's like, I really want to own a lot of land and be independently wealthy. I'm like, great goal.
Yeah.
You're going to have to work really hard right now for that to be true.
Yep.
That's not just going to magically appear for you. So, so I think those are just ways. I know I was telling you in our business, we have this concept, and I really wish I could attribute it to whoever said it. But we have this concept of going through the sucky swamp.
Yeah, this is good.
And so there is there's science behind this about performance dips when we make changes. Okay. And so when we change our diet, our energy level initially takes a drop, right? You're hungry. You're like, I'm not getting the right kinds of food. Well, your body's adapting. Is what it's been on autopilot. Your habits have put you on autopilot. Your body knows what you normally put into it. It knows how to burn that efficiently. You're now changing it. Performance is going to dip.
Yep.
Well, what happens is those adaptations happen, whether those are physical adaptations, mental, you're performing new habits, your body will go back into autopilot. It just needs to know the new course that it's going. And this could be happening as an enterprise in your business. When you change a system, the initial 2 weeks of that are going to be awful. And your people that were really good, they were really good because they had habits formed. They were doing things, and now you're asking them to do something different.
Yep.
It's going to take time. It's like when you move houses, the first couple times you go home, it's hard. You have to think about where you're going instead of that mindless driving that you do most of the time.
Yep.
So at some point it turns, your performance hits a bottom point.
Yep.
And then it starts becoming easier again.
Yeah.
And then hopefully if you've chosen the right habits, if you've chosen the right, course or the systems, performance goes up.
Higher than it was prior.
If it doesn't, then you just made a bad decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you went through the pain.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not going through pain for pain's sake. There should be an outcome that we're looking for, right? We should have done our research, thought through these things, and hopefully come out on the other side performing better.
Yep.
But what this guy said was that middle part, that dip right there, he called it the sucky swamp. And he said it feels like you're walking through a swamp. It feels like everything is hard. Everything's difficult.
Yep.
Mentally, physically, it's all difficult. And most people get stuck there.
Yeah.
And, like in the Bible where it says that, the Israelites got called out of Egypt. They're going to the promised land. They're stuck in the desert.
Yep.
And they're all of a sudden like, you know what? Let's go back. That was easier.
That was way better than what
Right.
this is right now.
And it's like, no, it's not. You were slaves there. Like you were getting beaten and killed there. Like, no, that's not better. But they're like, this is awful.
Yeah.
This is awful. I'd rather be back there. And that's so often how we are. Whether it's, you get up and start doing your quiet times, you get up, go to the gym. Most people, I laugh at CrossFit. I'm a 5 a.m. CrossFitter. I've been doing it for 7 years or something. But like when people come in, we always kind of take bets. How long you think they'll last? And usually 2 weeks is about it.
Yep.
It's like, what it really is, hey, they're sore. It's really hard to wake up in the morning to get up at 5 a.m. to do that.
And you're not yet seeing the results.
You're not seeing results.
At week 2.
Yeah, right. And it's like, this is not fun. It's like, I'm not seeing any results. And I've seen it over those years. It's like, at 6 months, something usually happens.
Yeah.
And you start seeing these, whoever it is, strength goes up, endurance goes up. And it's like a switch just flips. It's not like anything magical. It's consistency.
You stuck with it long enough.
You stuck with it long enough, and your body started to adapt to it. Getting up becomes easier. Going through it, recovering You don't hurt as long. Like, I very rarely hurt for more than a day or two after a workout. Now, every once in a while, there's a soul-crushing workout that, like, 3 days later, I'm still having trouble standing up off the toilet. Like, those kind of things with your legs or something. But for the most part,
it just becomes part of the rhythm.
It just becomes part of the thing. I'm laying on the ground, suffering, and then 30 minutes later, I'm good.
Yep.
And my body's like, that's great.
Yeah. And I see that too. I mean, another iteration of that in our fires is like in the professional fire. I mean, inevitably, when you go to try to do something at the next level, whether you're leaving a sustainable job and you're trying to step out into a new role that has some upside, but it's got some scary in between.
Yes.
And people try to figure out how to get through the sucky swamp without actually going through the sucky swamp.
Right.
And that rarely do you find bridges across the sucky swamp. You just kind of have to.
I don't know that there's anything worth attaining that doesn't require it. And that's the truth of it.
Yeah. On the other side of pain is everything that I need. I think that's a lyric that shows up in my workout playlist. But where is it that you might currently be in the doldrums, in the hard spot, that you just need to like muscle up and say, hey, pain is not linear.
Right.
Like, it hurts now, yes, but the promised land is still out there.
Right.
And my job is to just keep putting one foot in front of the other, because otherwise you end up quitting at mile 6 of a 26-mile ruck.
And I think you've just got to, I think the thing is, you've just got to, whether it's life plans or vision boards or whatever that looks like for you, whatever it takes for you to see where you're trying to go. We talk about this all the time. It's like, do you know your why? Like, do you know your why? Do you know your purpose? Do you know what you're trying to accomplish? That's what I tell Owen when he says, I want to be independently wealthy with farm. I'm like, okay, that's what your goal is. Now you need to back that down and figure out how to start heading in that direction.
Yep.
We don't hop in a car and say we're going to the Grand Canyon and don't pull up the GPS. Like, I'm not going to find it if I just start driving.
Yeah.
Like, I got to have an idea of where I'm going and how, like, if I don't start heading west from Atlanta, I don't care how fast I drive and how good I think. If I start going north, I'm not going to get there. But so many people, we understand that with car rides. But with life, we're like, I want to be wealthy. And you just took out a car loan and you just you have all this credit card debt, and it's like,
it's not directionally correct.
You just went north and you were trying to go west. Like, that's not how it works.
That's not directionally correct. And so that's part of actually what we do in coaching. But what you found is a good friend who will keep walking with you.
Yes.
Give you good advice.
Yes.
And sometimes a good friend is the person who prompts you to go do something hard.
Correct.
And who will walk with you in a space that that maybe you would have stepped into without them.
Absolutely.
We talk a lot about the power of a guide. And so if there is a spot in any of your 4 fires that, for the audience out there, as you think about this idea, pain is not linear, that we need to be very intentional about where we go, but where can you find a friend, find a guide who will push you to that next level, and when you're ready to like throw in the towel because you're stuck in the sucky swamp, it's going to look at you and go, nope, we're still going.
We're still doing
because remember where you said you wanted to be.
Yeah, that's it.
Man, that's good. That's a good word. Thanks for that. That line has resonated with me, and so thank you for sharing that wisdom from and that's the goal of the 4 Fires podcast.
Yeah, 100%.
Is that we just take these little nuggets that help people live life a little more intentionally. So the lesson of the day: pain is not linear, and that life lesson can apply in your professional fire, in your people fire, in your physical
100%.
fire, and absolutely in your purpose fire. So,
Yep.
Josh, thanks so much
My
for
pleasure.
being here
My
today.
pleasure. Yep.
Ton of fun.
Yep.
Thanks for listening. This was another fun episode of the Four Fires Podcast.